Hi everyone. Right, so good to have got a couple of people joining for our webinar today, just before Christmas. There's a couple of things I'll go over just before we all break up. I want to go over the social integration that we've got with Google and both Facebook. We'll also go through the settings tab where we can amend things like our unsubscribe preferences and also lead scoring and the high value and goal URLs. So first of all, if we just begin with the Google and Facebook integration, you can find this in our connections tabs. So as a little bit of a background of what this does, you can link up to both Google AdWords and your Facebook ads pages. And what you can do is you can sync marketing lists to both of these accounts. Now, the reason being you might want to do this is, let's say you've got a product email that you've sent out to your database and you want to push an advert to the people that have engaged. What you can do is you can create a marketing list, perhaps of everyone that's opened or clicked, push that to Google and Facebook, and what that means is then you can bid much higher on those contacts because you know they've engaged, thus saving you a little bit of cost because you're not bidding on your entire database. You're just bidding on those that are engaged. Or vice versa, you might do it to everyone that hasn't engaged. Perhaps you've got good revenue from the email, you want to try another avenue, so you bid on the people that haven't engaged. So it just allows that segmentation to easily be diverse. So as you can see, I'm on the connections tab and I've scrolled to the very bottom, and this is where I can see the campaign manager control. So we've connected up our Facebook and Google. You'll need to do this probably once a month basis because Google and Facebook change their APIs quite often. So make sure you log in and make sure that the connection's there at least once a month. And what you'll need to do, you need to be logged in to both accounts. So make sure it's not your personal account, make sure it's the company account, because as soon as you click connect, that will go to your page and it will try to connect up that particular account. So I'm in my personal one now and you'll see that it's going to try and do that. So I just go back a step, go back to our connections tab. You'll see that both are. So we need to recreate our Google one, but Facebook is currently there. Then in order just to sync it, all you need to do is go to your data. So if you've done, if you see one of our previous webinars where we've talked about things like our unengaged and engaged lists, what we'd recommend is always having that syncing. And the way that you can sync that up is by clicking on your particular marketing list. So let me find with someone with contacts in there. And you'll see here, now we've got sync status. So all it is, on your reporting, you need to activate that sync. As soon as you activate that sync, that marketing list will then populate in both of those accounts. Then you can see here, this particular list isn't being synced. But if I wanted to do so, all I would do is click activate. All that doing now, look, is linking to the account, and it'll tell me when that last sync has been, and it'll tell me how many contacts are pushed. It usually takes around 15 minutes for that account to run. I'll go back to your data, and I can see all of the other lists, and I can do that in any list, like I say, by just clicking on view report and seeing that sync status. Any questions so far on this? If you have, just click on the little chat icon and put a question into everyone and I'll answer those. If not, I'll move on to the next part. No questions so far. Okay, so I'll move on to the settings tab, because like I said, this is where we really want to talk about lead scoring and also your goal URLs. And you see we've got a very, very long list. When it comes to lead scoring then, so especially when it comes to either acquisition campaigns or if you just want to see how engaged your contacts are doing, we can attribute a score to a contact based on their activity. And you can see on ours, you can edit it very easily by clicking the edit icon here. And you can see we've got different scores. So you can score people for an open. We've got 0, but you can have it as 1 to 10 depending on how you're engaged. We've got 1 for a click, 3 for a general web page hit. We've then got what we call a repeat web visit. So they've come back to that particular page. We've got high value, and then we've got hit goal URL. A high value web page. So that might be something that you deem to be, if a contact reaches it, they're probably quite engaged. So perhaps it's a testimonial on your website, case studies, things like that. A hit goal URL, it might be something that someone's physically done. So if they've physically filled out a form and reached a thank you page. And you'll determine these up here. So if I scroll to the very top, you see I've got my goal URLs. And if I scroll down, you can see how many I've got. I can edit and delete them at any point, so I can change them as often as I like. And you'll see also in some of ours, we've got a little percentage sign. What that is, that's a wildcard. So depending on when someone clicks, the domain might change depending on pieces of code. It's very different for everyone. So we often say, let's have a little wildcard in there to make sure we fully capture that particular domain. And that will be just www.force24.co.uk, but then we've got / the C word download. So that means someone's reached that particular page. If I scroll down, this is where we've got our high value. So a couple of these is, we've got guides that we've put on there, lots of downloading pages, because we know that's a high value page, whereas our goal URLs are more thanks pages, they're booked to demo, that's extremely valuable to us. So we'd recommend doing that for yourselves as well. And all you do to add a new one is you would click on the plus icon in the top right, click add, and you'll see now that all I need to do is add a new URL. So if I just copy and paste that one here, that one exists already, but let's say I want to put in a percentage sign here. I can do so, add, and it's there for you to use. And if I want to delete at any point, all I do is click delete. Same with high value URLs as well. And like I said, if I want to edit the scoring at any point, this can be changed and it will be reattributed. The way that a lead scoring will work is it's always based on the previous 30 days activity. So if I did something on the 1st, that will still count right up until the 1st of January. It'll still keep the 30 days of activity, but because it's past that 30 days, we're saying that they're not as engaged anymore, but their score will continue to go up, and it will also rise again if they do re-engage with us. Because if at any point, if they've clicked on the email or filled in a form, that cookie has now dropped, so we're tracking everything they're doing. And that's how we know repeat web visit is also viable. Sometimes you might even score that a little bit higher, because they've actively gone out of their way to come back to your website. So for you or your particular business, that might actually be quite a good way of having them scored. You'll also see here we've got some score thresholds. So if you do make use of direct mail, sometimes what people do is say this direct mail threshold of 30. That's when you would send them a piece of DM to re-engage them. And we've also got telemarketing. Telemarketing, that's what we've got this tab here. Now, a lot of you have your own CRMs, so you don't make use of the telemarketing tab, but that's where those particular contacts will show. One of the things we do always recommend is having a journey for those particular lead scores. So if I go to our journey manager, what I often do is I will have a journey, and I'll just call it lead score journey. I want to constantly keep adding these contacts because, like I said, it's 30 days. So I'll probably say, let's keep it at 7. So each week I want it to go through to keep up to date with their lead score. What I'll do then is I will have a start audience. I drag that across. This is where I want to determine the lead score. So I'll go lead score. I want to find out if it's greater or equal to 30. And if I click on contacts found, I can see I've got 89. So that's a great number. So click save. What I'm going to do then is I'm going to add an action, and I want to add them to a list. And I'm going to call this lead score 30 plus. What that means is now, as soon as someone meets that audience criteria, 30, they're going to go straight into a list. Now, of course, because the lead score will depreciate over time, I don't want to keep them in that list. So this is where I need to make a make decision stage. So I'm going to drag that across. And I'm going to delay it, so I want to have it as 30 days. And I'm saying, is the lead score less than 30? And you'll see now I've got a yes-no decision tree. The reason I've put it in as a 30-day and I've said lead score is less is because when the criteria is met with yes, that happens instantly. So as soon as that happens, I want to remove them from that list. So I'm going to drag across an action, remove from list, and I want to remove them from my lead score list. Click save. Drag that yes over there. Everyone that hasn't, they've remained with a lead score above, I'm just going to end their journey because we don't need to do anything with those anymore. And I can connect those together. There we go. And if you want to keep that fresh, like I say, I've done mine at 7 days. You might do it just over 30, but that will make sure that list is constantly populated then. And the make decision, because it's at yes, is always happening. And all you do then is go back to your Journey Manager, click Start, and it will start that process straight away for you. And then when you go to your data, you'll see you've got a new list, lead score 30. You can always constantly go into that view report and make sure that list is populating. Perhaps again, when we talk about the Google statuses and Facebook, you might sync that as well with your Google Facebook, because you know every time they're meeting that list criteria, the lead score criteria, you can make sure that's syncing with your social media platforms as well. If I just go back a step, you'll also see a member count timeline. So be able to see when people are entering this list, how it's going up and down. So obviously, as the active email count will go up, hopefully, you know you're constantly adding a lot of leads in there. If it's going down, that's when I'd recommend taking a look at their particular acquisition campaign in order to get those leads right back up into the journey. And you can see now, if I go back, I've got 89. So very soon they will run through the journey and that will populate into that list. Is there any questions so far on this particular aspect, lead scoring, Journey Manager, that anyone would like to bring up? Please do pop something in the chat. I'll give it a second and then we'll also move on. Nope. Cool. Okay. If there is any questions, obviously, just do pop up at any point and I'll get back to you. So just back on the settings tab. So, you know, we've been through the goals, we've been through the high value URLs and been through the lead scoring. You'll notice this little section that comes in between it as well, which is the sent from override. Now, a lot of you will use this where you'll override it per campaign, but this is where you have it as a default. So if you're constantly changing it, or if you know you're going to have this as a default, I'd recommend updating it here. And that's just by clicking on the edit icon here. So the email from name will always be Force24 as a default. And like I said, you can change at any point. Same with the SMS from text. Now, when it comes to SMS, as a company, you'd be limited to 9 characters because that's the standard across it. So make sure it's quite short and snappy. And same with the email reply address. All replies will go to that unless it's overridden. If you do change at any point, I would always say keep it on next campaigns. That's our recommended one. You can do all new and past campaigns, but like I said, because you're sort of going back as yourself, the email's are already gone. It's much more secure to do it this way. Let's scroll down. This is where we can then manage our opt-out preferences. So rather than letting people completely blanket unsubscribe from all of your communications, we want to give them the option to opt out, because you know a lot of the time people want to receive something from you, but it might just not be that relevant to them. It's all about making sure that content is relevant. Now, the idea is we want you to have as many journeys and as many campaigns going out as possible, but just making sure it's going out to the relevant databases. So you'll have your acquisition campaigns, your customer campaigns, and maybe just ongoing general campaigns that you've got like newsletters. This is where you would keep them organized. So you can see on our opt-out preferences, we've got things like automation news, product news, we've got guides and case studies, discounts and grants. And then this will then appear on a page. And I'll show you ours as an example. So as soon as you click on subscribe, they will be taken to this particular page. They'll see all of these options, and at any point they can say, remove me. You'll see now that I'm removed from that one, but I'm still opted into the rest. And I'm not receiving SMS. Maybe I do want to receive SMS. It's also got the option to update it by channel. So we've got by content and by channel. All the content will do is update. And then all that will happen then is it will update in the system automatically. So you don't need to do anything. It's all automated. And now as a contact status, I no longer want to receive automation guides. Now, how does this work on the system? If I go back a step, and I go to, let's just look at my Journey Manager. This one's a particular guide. If I open up the email stage,
you are the last party in the conference.
You'll have noticed that they've got something called the sub-preferences. This is where you will then click on the particular campaign. So here we've got a best practice data guide. I want to make sure that that is a guide. So what I will do is I will click case studies. that will automatically make sure that anyone that's within our case studies, has opted out to case studies rather, will not receive this campaign. So you make sure you select that one here. If I go back to my settings page and scroll down, all I need to do then, in order to add these and remove them, is click on the plus icon. When I click on the plus icon, all I do is give it a quick name, a description about the opt-out preference, drag in an image to represent that particular opt-out preference, and whether or not I want it to show and unsubscribe. Often you'll click yes and click submit, and that will show here. And it will also give you the numbers of people that have been opting out, or opting in rather. So we've got 439 that have opted out of this particular, and so on and so forth. So it gives you a great idea of what people are actually looking at and what they want to receive. If you ever want to make, see all of the contacts that have opted in as well, we do have the option to do so within our contact manager, contact search rather, by looking at our subscription preference. So you click your subscription preference, you'd select which one you want to look at, automation guides. And if I want to find out everyone, I would filter those contacts, and it'll show me everyone that's fully opted in to that particular preference. Go back to my settings. If at any point I want to remove that, I will just click disable, delete, get rid of it. We can change those at any point. Any questions so far? No? Okay. I'll leave it there for now. We've gone through the, like I said, we've gone through the social media, we've gone through the opt-out preferences and lead scoring. If there is any questions, just send us an email after or pop on intercom. Obviously over Christmas, we're still here Christmas Eve, and then we will have the support other than the bank holidays. So if there is anything urgent, please do pop on intercom and let us know. But if not, have a great Christmas, and I'll see you all in the new year. Thanks everyone.